What's an oh crap moment where you realized you've been doing something the wrong way for years? I had a used car and didn't realize until a couple years later that it had remote start. Person buying my now more used car. This has remote start. Me. No. Person. Pushes button. Starts car. Me. Well, price just went up. When I was 5, a Pizza Hut employee told me that the powder on the breadsticks was called fairy dust. Ordered extra fairy dust on my breadsticks until I was around 14 when an employee said, "Do you mean garlic salt?" It still devastates me to realize how obtuse I was. I worked at Pizza Hut from 1621. We called it fairy dust. It wasn't very long, but when I was learning to drive, my dad was explaining the rule of thumb regarding a safe distance to be behind the car in front of you. I thought it meant to hold your thumb up, and if your thumb didn't cover the entire car you were too close to it. When he caught me doing that, he asked me what I was doing. When I explained, he burst out laughing, then considered it, and concluded it wasn't a bad idea but perhaps a bit distracting. Also, every other driver thinks you're a super friendly guy or a bit passive aggressive. We bought a nice liquor cabinet. We got it delivered and noticed it was a bit shorter than we thought. No biggie. 3 years later, we're moving. Lift up cabinet and these beautiful, ornate, screw on legs wrapped in tape and bubble wrap fall off the bottom. Looks so much better now. Until last week, when my father-in-law would made a phone call on his very basic non-touch screen flip phone, he would open the menu, scroll to the phone icon, open it, hit the soft key for contacts, scroll to the person he wanted to call, press OK, then press the soft key to call. When he mentioned how he preferred his landline because he could just dial the number, I said, "Humor me. Just dial the number and hit the talk button." I've never seen a man so simultaneously grateful and embarrassed. I'm so used to relying on my contacts that I don't bother to memorize phone numbers anymore. Yikes. Couple years ago, I was trying to open some toothpaste and had to break the seal of the tube. I used to look for something like a nail to break it. Then one day I looked at the pointy end of the cap and thought, what if I could use this to break it? And oh crap, it did fit and broke it effortlessly. And so did every other tube product I had in that I was cooking with my boyfriend a month or so ago, and I was confused when he mentioned he hated opening tubes of tomato puree, because I just find it satisfying. I then proceeded to stare at him in disbelief when he started trying to peel the tiny foil seal off the end of the tube. I just slowly reached out, picked the screw top cap off the counter, and showed him the pointy bit. Since the dawn of time, I would pick up the silverware and utensils out of their tray in the dishwasher and put them away in their drawers, then go back and pick up more out of the dishwasher. Then one day I saw my wife lift the tray out of the dishwasher and I legit stood there with my mouth open. God damn it. I knew that thing moved because I've removed it and changed it around to make pans or big dishes fit better, and I've still been going back and forth for the silverware. When I was a kid, I loved drinking coffee but didn't know how to make it. My mom taught me, but the coffee ratio she told me to use was like 1 tablespoon per 1 pot of coffee as opposed to the actual ratio 1 tablespoon 1 cup of water. Fast forward about 13 years to a couple months ago, and I was reading the back of my Folgers coffee thing and there was a little diagram showing how much to actually use. I then realized my mom had told me the wrong amount, so I wouldn't drink all her coffee, and B, wasn't super hyped up going into school. I always thought eggplant tasted itchy, like itchy was a flavor, like sour or salty. Fed some to my baby and his face turned red wherever the eggplant touched, and I realized we're both just allergic to eggplant, and itchy isn't a flavor. I LOL'd at itchy isn't a flavor. My mom has been pronouncing Massachusetts for years and no one corrected her because they thought she just had strong feelings about Massachusetts. My mother cannot pronounce that or Mitsubishi. She tries but same outcome and Mitsubishi comes out Mitsubishi. I lived in a house for 6 years with a bathroom with no shelf or cupboard to put toiletries into. I was very disappointed and ended up using a windowsill that was way too small to fit everything. Anyway, one day we had a friend over and he asked why we don't have anything in our bathroom cupboard. I was confused, so he showed me. It turns out that the mirror I had been using for 6 years has a hidden compartment behind it. It was a mirror door to a mounted cupboard on the wall. I was astonished and immediately moved all my stuff from the window into the new space. My friend was baffled that I had never figured out there was a space behind the mirror. There was an obvious gap between it and the wall that I somehow failed to notice. No one really ever told me you don't need to buy shoes with the 2 fingers space in front of the toes after your feet stop growing. I had been buying an entire size too big until about age 23. One day in college I decided to try a pair of Merrell barefoot type shoes, and after reading the sizing guide, bam, mind blown. It's terribly obvious mistake I, 29F, like to blame on being an only child, but really I'm just a freaking moron. Well, this was a few years ago. I was the director of IT for a very large company. I was given a new cell phone and told to set up my voicemail. I don't know that when I recorded my name it would be played to whomever I leave a voicemail for. Well, the name I recorded was Dudder84 Corporate IT God. I worked there for 4 years until someone in the hallway referred to me as the Corporate IT God. I was so embarrassed. Wear it confidently. This type of crap makes people like you more. They don't feel the need to be fake around you. My mom used to refer to me as a bull in a china shop. Always heard it as bowl in a china shop, thinking it was a compliment. At about 22 I hear someone else use the phrase and realized she meant bull, not bowl. AWW mom talking about how dainty and priceless I am again. I grew up without a mom. She passed when I was 6. I was afraid to ask my dad how to put a tampon in. One day I made a comment, about age 18, to some friends that tampons hang out too far out your bujingo and made me feel like I waddled when I walk. My friend asked me how I put them in. I thought it would get stuck up there and wasn't inserting it far enough. Did it wrong for about 5 years. My friends still make fun of me for it. I can't help but use the dead mom card, but looking back it's pretty common sense how to shove it up there. I didn't really feel comfortable with my body, so I'm not sure I really understood what the directions were asking. For others asking, my dad was a really good dad. Obviously he made some general mistakes as a parent, as all parents do, but as a substitute mother he did a great job. He taught me how to shave my legs, funny voices and all, and he was a Girl Scout troop leader for almost 10 years. He tried to figure out how to French braid, and he did comb my nasty but ratty hair on a daily basis. I use pads instead of tampons because tampons have always been uncomfortable, and after reading a few tampon related comments on this thread I'm pretty sure I just don't know how to insert a tampon. I owned a car with swivel headlights and it was very nice to have that. Discovered 3 years in that I had never turned on the swivel feature. My name is Ryan. It took me until I was in 1st grade to realize my name wasn't in the alphabet. My mom had told me my name was in the alphabet, and I felt so lucky. She obviously meant the letters to spell my name were in the alphabet. But nope. It took that long to realize the alphabet didn't go W, X, Ryan Z. Don't feel bad. My birthday is in July. I was under the impression until I was 7 that the 4th of July, the fireworks, specifically, were for my birthday. I felt really dumb, but also really sad when I realized they weren't. One of the dumbest parts of my early childhood, and it is worth a silver. Thanks Reddit. I'm glad someone found my naivety entertaining. Last month was the first time I discovered lint rollers were peelable. Literally sat there for a minute to take that in. I'm 20. My eldest child had a penchant for blowing out of his diapers. We tried everything, but multiple times a week we had to pull that poo-filled onishi over his head and inevitably give our now super duper poo-covered infant a bath. Around when I was pregnant with our second, a post went viral about how infant onisies are designed to be broad at the shoulders so you can pull them down and off instead of over the head. The poor kid would have had so many fewer poo in hair incidents had I known that then. After the first paragraph I assumed you were putting the diaper on wrong and was really interested to hear how. Not that I have any idea if one even can put a diaper on wrong, as I have never changed one. I thought this emoji was a shy smile for like 2 years because on my Galaxy it didn't look very annoyed like it does on other phones. Until my boyfriend questioned me and told me it was a rolling eyes emoji. I had been using this emoji with everyone meaning it to be a smile, but they must have thought I was so mean. Not wrong for years, but I work help desk, and we use a specific, terrible piece of software for our support system, IBM Notes. It turns out that for the first 9 months I had been working there, it wasn't set up properly, so I wasn't sending any emails from it at all. No notifications that the ticket went to me, no responses from me, no close notifications, nothing. Someone noticed this, took a look, and fixed a setting. I immediately sent out over 1,000 emails to everyone in the company. You work in IT and managed to keep your job without sending emails for 9 months. That's impressive. Realized the multicolored tape measures glued to the door frames of gas stations etc. are for identifying robbers, not for measuring yourself as you walk out. I mean, they can be, but that's not why they are there, unless you're the robber. I've seen so many stores where whoever installed it clearly didn't know what it was for either, because I'm 6, but in some stores I'm 7 and in some I'm 5. Not mine, but my dad has been spelling his name wrong his whole life. He's 51. His name is Jeffrey, and he's been spelling it like that since he learned how to spell his name. A few months ago my mom pulled out his birth certificate, and we all learned it's actually spelled Jeffrey. Not sure if he spells it correctly now, but it was definitely an oh crap moment for him. Grandfather thought his name was Harvey his whole life. Got his birth certificate at 65 and it's Harmon. My first gold. Thanks. Learned earlier last year bust a nut isn't an expression for when something hits your nuts or you land in a way that crushes them. You're not necessarily wrong, depends on your inclination. I was at Crate and Barrel with my GF talking about how it's so weird they don't make tongs so you open them up super wide and then press in. I thought it was odd that they only gave you a super tiny opening. In the middle of me saying this she just presses the button at the bottom of the tongs I was holding and I stopped mid-sentence in shame. For about 3 years, we only bought classy Crate and Barrel furniture for work. We'd have it shipped in from out of state, and finally I asked my boss why we didn't just pick it up at the showroom. She asked what showroom. I said the showroom attached to the restaurant. The Cracker Barrel restaurant. No, they are not the same company. When I was a kid and was acting up, my dad would always threaten to leave me at this mean old lady's house. Her name was Helen Handbasket. Fast forward about 28 years later and it clicks out of nowhere while I was on a customer call at work. Customer, this whole network is going to heck in a handbasket. Me, I'm an idiot. Customer, did you figure it out? Me, oh, number, not yet. I used to fill the kettle by the spout. My parents have always done it this way. I thought the center part was mainly for decoration, but not functional. I don't know why I never questioned this. One day I bought a new tea kettle and my husband was like WTF what is inside this? And with great ease, opened the center to pull out a manual with instructions and whatnot. I was drinking dirty paper water for like 2 weeks. When I first got a debit card and would go out to eat at restaurants with my friends, I would leave a cash tip on the table. When I got the receipt to put how much I was paying I would write down how much money I left on the table. For at least 6 months I gave double tips to every waitress I had. One day I used a key fob to remotely start my dad's car. It was an oh crap moment for him. 2 years and he didn't realize he had this handy little function. My dad bought an aftermarket remote start and took it in to get installed. When he went to pick it up, they asked him what was wrong with the factory one. I am lactose intolerant. I genuinely did not know this for the first 25 plus years of my life. I always had to go to the bathroom after eating something with cheese in it. One day it just clicked. I bought some Lactaid, took it before the next time I ate cheese, and I didn't have to go to the bathroom. It was mind-blowing. I have no idea how I didn't make the connection for years. So I guess you could say instead of having a oh crap moment I had a no crap moment. And NBSP. My family always had a cup next to the bathroom sink in case you needed to rinse your mouth after brushing your teeth or maybe get a quick drink of water in the middle of the night. My grandma had the same cup at her house. I used it for years whenever I was thirsty. One day she saw me doing this and said, "Don't use that cup. That's where grandma puts her teeth." Living in a foreign country where I was actively learning the language. Social cues go a long way when learning a language on the spot. That being said, someone once said a phrase to me while serving a hot dish, which I assumed as meaning "excuse me." After going through crowds and lines, replicating the same phrase in an attempt to be respectful of those around me, I abruptly found out that the phrase actually meant enjoy. Hindsight completely makes sense. The odd looks I would get by saying enjoy while squeezing past people all of a sudden made sense. I'm glad my mistakes bring such enjoyment and hilarity to the world. So this happened while I was living in Vietnam. The phrase was "xin mi." It was even more deceiving because it was similar to the phrase for sorry, which is "xin li." That was year 1. The following 3 years were full of similar mistakes. Tonal languages are tough. Part of me was hoping you've been announcing that you're a hot dish while passing by people for all these years. I was 30 when I found out that an event calendar, as I called it, is not a thing and it's an advent calendar. I was 32 when I found out advent is not short for adventure. Adventure calendar. That's awesome. Way better than gross waxy chocolate behind little cardboard doors. I didn't realize I had to brush the back of my teeth as well as the front. I was a dumb kid. I blamed toothpaste adverts. Until I was 15. Had 9 filings and a root canal. Same. Embarrassingly enough, I thought you brushed your teeth to keep them white. I didn't know anything about keeping them healthy, so I thought, I don't mind if my back teeth are yellow. Nobody's going to see them anyway. My wife and I have the ceiling fan light in our bedroom in the house we moved into 2 years ago. It has a remote control for the fan and lights. About a year and a half ago the lights suddenly stopped working. The fan works well and we didn't have a ton of money, so we've just lived with lamps in the room, always being frustrated with how dang dark it is. I was scrolling some other thread on a Reddit tifu a few weeks ago and the top post was a guy talking about how his lights stopped working years ago, and then he found out that it was just dimmed, which you do by holding down the button on the remote. It sounded so much like our fan I went and tried it. Dimmed. Oh gosh. I remember reading that post too. If this happens I hope I remember to check that first. I didn't find out that I was supposed to punch out for lunch until my 3rd job. And even then it was because a coworker mentioned it in passing that they were clocking out for lunch. That's freaking awesome. I cannot believe none of your bosses did not ever say anything to you. As a boy, I had an unconventional method for masturbating. It would require a diagram to get across all its subtleties, but let's just say that it required 2 hands, was not intuitive, and simulated no known physical act. It was suboptimal. After a year or so of convoluted self-abuse, one of the older kids made the international jerk-off hand gesture towards me. My jaw dropped. I instantly knew that I had been doing it wrong all that time. It was so simple, so obvious, way quieter, and way more effective. I tried it that night and never looked back. That do changed my life. Thank you, Chris Eastman. None of the guesses are even remotely close. I'm so curious about this unconventional method. Former school nurse here. The number of high school boys who don't know what circumcision is amazingly high. Many think they were born circumcised. When they finally see a foreskin, they are in complete awe. When they find out the brown ring on their dongs is a scar from when their foreskin was removed, they are also amazed. Whoa. I used to think just reading the material was how everyone studied, so that's how I did it too. I never quite understood why my grades were so low. It'd be like I read the page, IDK what happened, until I saw my friend making flowcharts and summaries and I was like, we don't have to do that, you know, and he was like, nah, I am just studying. It blew my mind how much better my grades got. Bet you thought you were real original coming up with that username joke. Huh. Bet you thought I'd never heard it before. Huh. Well, who's not smart knew wow. Still me okay, yeah, I'll go home, sorry. Looking back on it, I was never really taught how to study. I don't think a lot of people were, and for some people it's instinctual, but it isn't for everyone. Schools should hold a course on various methods of studying. Not cause I've been doing something wrong my entire life but saw it wrong. I'm colorblind and my entire life I thought peanut butter was green until I turned 19. And when I found out it was brown my mind was blown. It took so long because no one really talks about the color of things like that. I went to a county fair when I was a kid and the brown cows were in a barn with crappy yellow sodium lights. Those cows were as green as Irish grass to my eye. My parents thought I was nuts going on about the green cows. Wasn't until I got my color vision tested when I went into the service I found out why. I didn't know you could take off the caps of those refrigerated coffee creamers. I had been stabbing through the foil with a knife for years until my uncle saw me and asked what the frick I was doing. LOL. I'm a woman. People always think I'm a guy by my comments. If it makes you feel better, my brother used to think those were milkshake beverages until I put to him he was chugging International Delight, the coffee creamer. Cork guns. Everyone says that you're supposed to pull it towards you, but I saw a dick comment saying that they're designed to be pushed away instead. My boss looks at me funny for doing it, but it's exponentially cleaner and tighter. Quite a few of y'all are mentioning that you're unclear on what you're pushing away. When you cork, you slide the entire gun across the crack that you're sealing. So it's that. You can only ever slide it towards you or away from you, unless you're going sideways, I guess. And most people pull the entire gun and tip towards them, whereas sliding it in the other direction works too. A few of y'all sound like you know exactly what you're doing and have added a couple other tips on how to do it cleaner and better, too. So thanks for that. I have a lot of corking to do soon. I will be testing this hypothesis. I was incredibly sheltered growing up. Anything private I was taboo and not discussed. I was in middle school when instant messaging really became mainstream. I couldn't understand why the boy I had a crush on kept laughing at me and telling me not to use the shorthand CM for cum. I didn't find out for a few years. Related, I genuinely thought a hand job was essentially frantically waving side to side with the palm on the dong, and a blow job was, you guessed it, blowing on a dong, until probably around 8th grade. Sigh. So, I was fortunate enough to buy my own home due to unfortunate circumstances. I moved in and the thermostat thing was set to about 70 degrees F. As time went on, I couldn't figure out why there was no visible way for me to change the temperature. My electric bill would be through the roof every month. The thermostat is well above my eye level and I lived alone for quite some time, though family and friends did visit regularly. After several months of leaving windows open or closed to adapt to the change in weather, I finally asked my niece, I think, to check the thermostat for a way to change the temperature. She looked around for a bit and saw that there was a tab I was supposed to pull to reveal all of the buttons and settings of the goddamn thermostat. Oh crap. So glad I posted this late enough for it to go mostly unnoticed. I'm an idiot. So it's been months, not years. Still, dang it. That you do, in fact, need to disassemble your laundry dryer and clean the lint out from underneath the drum once per year. I'm 31 and never knew this. No one ever said anything. Never saw anyone do this. Crappiest thing is that my parents also learned this the hard way and never bothered to give me a tip when I bought my first dryer. Luckily, the wife and I discovered the lint buildup when changing the rollers. I said to my parents, wow, it really builds up in there, and they were like, oh yeah, you need to do that like once a year. Right. I taught myself how to play clarinet. 6 months later someone told me that I'd been playing with the mouthpiece upside down. Maybe you just had your mouth upside down. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.